Dear colleagues, in my PhD work, I'm exploring possibilities to provide better care for the critically ill with a special focus on the microbiome. My name is Karim Dilan Márk. I work here at the university as an anesthesiology resident, and my vision is that science one day may overcome quackery, and my mission to achieve this is to understand better and disseminate better the beauty and pitfalls of evidence creation. Currently, I'm going with 4 topics, out of which 2 is related to microbiome research. I want to show them to you. In the first meta-analysis, I'm investigating the extent of dysbiosis in the critically ill. And talking about the microbiota, we are talking about the billions of hundreds of billions of bacteria from different species who are living with us, suffering with us, and even fighting with us in a tight cooperation. And with our immune system and epithelial cells, those microbial communities in a strong partnership are the gatekeepers of our homeostasis. And if any harm happens to us or to these communities especially, then a change in composition and a loss of diversity is seen. That's how we can define dysbiosis. The problem during critical illness is that the illness severity itself and the specific interventions we apply lead to dysbiosis, and we already know that this may lead to secondary infections due to the overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria. We know that this is related to morbidity and mortality, but we still don't know the extent and the risk factors that affects dysbiosis. And our aim here is to analyze this relationship. What is the extent and what are the risk factors of dysbiosis in critically ill patients? Our hypothesis is that it's frequent and is influenced by distinct critical illness-associated factors. And by increasing awareness on the importance, we think that it may lead to appropriate testing and possible implementation of preventive measures. We identified a great pool of research studies to work with. And the collected outcome measures were mainly diversity indices, which are widely used, like the Shannon and the KO1. I already finished extraction at all the main body parts of the comparison. Dysbiosis at the gut, at the lungs, and at the blood. First, I analyzed the loss of diversity from 2 aspects. In the first aspect, the pooled ICU patient diversity was compared against the pooled healthy controls diversity. And in another aspect, the changes during the course of illness was observed. I made several forest plots, and this analysis had the great strength of these over 10,000 patients included from 300 groups, which give the possibility of several subgroupings. But there were serious flaws regarding to the data, which one cannot unsee because of the differences in sequencing methods and baseline characteristics, but mainly because of the taxonomic assignment differences. There was a great comparability issue. As you can see there at the Shannon index results, it's ranging from 2 to 7, which is way more wider than expected, and I believe that these results are representing mainly methodological differences, not the real needed outcomes. So we started a journey to improve reliability and comparability, and as a second analysis, to eliminate these between paper differences, I excluded all the studies without a control group. So only where both healthy controls and ICU patients' diversity were measured in the same paper and with the same methods were analyzed were included in this comparison. And these standardized mean differences were created to eliminate the differences from previous comparisons. And of course, this came with a reduction of power because the number of eligible studies, patients, body parts, and the possible subgroupings reduced greatly. On this plot, the diversity differences at the gut between healthy control and ICU patients are shown. you can see that the diversity is higher to the left. And it's obvious that the microbial diversity is significantly reduced in the critically ill compared to the healthy controls. And there were no significant differences in the extent of this diversity loss among adults and children. Similar results were obtained using another diversity index, the KO1. Microbial richness is significantly reduced, and there is no visible difference between the adults and children. So with this standardized comparison, we got more reliable results, but there were trade-offs. And our next plan is to maintain a large analysis, which is well-powered, but have reliable results meanwhile. So the planned extension is to obtain and reanalyze raw data, raw sequence data from the authors and from data repositories, and reanalyze the diversity indices, and with those recounted measures, align the patient characteristics. Like this, we can get a retrospective registry where individual patient data analysis is possible independently from the original paper. And due to the Cochrane's collaboration, the IPD meta-analysis is the highest quality of evidence. This is how our database looks like, where each row represents one patient with the standardizedly counted diversity indices, which are not related to the original paper anymore. So from a row comparison of extracted data, we plan to arrive to the comparison of the full row individual patient's data. As a conclusion, we can say that due to methodological differences, a simple comparison is not possible in this field of research. But with standardized comparison, we can say that the critical illness is associated with the loss of diversity, and this extent is similar between adults and children. And more conclusions will arrive after the IPD meta. In this second meta-analysis, I'm exploring the depth. We are planning to compare sample obtaining methods for lung microbiome testing. Even in pre-COVID era, pneumonia was the fourth leading cause of death. And to diagnose and manage pneumonia, you will need good quality samples. To obtain those samples, you can either go with invasive, research-intensive methods, like the bronchoalveolar lavage, or less invasive, easier to perform methods, like the endotracheal aspiration. And once you have the sample, we usually use culture-based conventional techniques to identify that one or two culturable living virulent bacteria in the sample. But novel methods are arising, and the analysis of the whole microbiota profile is possible with metagenomic sequencing. The results are very different there, because also dead, non-pathogenic, and non-virulent bacteria are seen in the picture that is created. We already know that many studies compared previously BAL and ETA based on the culturing results. However, this growing potential of metagenomic sequencing, those results were not systematically compared between the samples from the two techniques. So our aim is to do that. In the research question, we are looking for any differences in the diversity of samples. Diversity is depicted by richness estimators, richness and evenness estimators, and beta diversity indicators that are widely known in the literature. And we are planning to compare the two techniques in intubated patients whose lung microbiome is tested. Our hypothesis is that there is no difference between the two samples when analyzed with the microbiome sequencing method. As a hypothetical forest plot, we imagine our results that neither in BAL or ETA the diversity and richness will be higher. And if that is the case, and we know that ETA is safer, more convenient, and much less invasive compared to BAL, then that is the method of choice when analyzing the lung microbiome. After the systematic search, we are now at the full text phase selection. And my biggest driving pressure to do science besides the pressure of the progress reports is that discovery consists of seeing what everybody has seen, but to think that nobody has thought. Thank you.
So I just want to congratulate you. That's a very nice presentation, a very difficult topic. You got to be very brave once you have come to a decision to reach this topic, because it's an everyday problem of ours at the ICUs, which we basically don't clearly understand. Am I right?
Yeah.
So we still don't know what is going on, and I just want to learn from you with my next question. What do you think the reason is of losing diversity in the critically ill patient population? I'm just wondering what you think regarding that.
I think, and from this huge database, as a subjective implication for me, was that the illness severity itself has the highest impact on the loss of diversity and dysbiosis. So when the integrity of epithelial cells, the immune microbiome interaction is lost, then the communication starts to be different between those microbial communities, and secondary infections and other unknown results can happen arising from this.
So you're blaming everything on the nature, right? With that, and you're not blaming on ourselves. Is it possible that we are also responsible for that with the how shall I phrase it, with the non-wise selection of antibiotic treatment?
Yeah.
Is it possible? I'm just wondering.
Of course, the antibiotic usage is one of the greatest domain that affects dysbiosis. But for me, it was a great surprise that antibiotic classes and antibiotic versus not antibiotic microbiomes, when compared, there is a difference, but it's not that huge as the difference between very severe and non-severe cases. And also, of course, the things starting from the percentage of oxygen content inhaled and other drugs that you won't think about regarding to dysbiosis, like opioids, are affecting dysbiosis greatly, but we don't know the extent, but we hope that from the IPD meta-analysis we will have a clearer picture.
Congratulations, John.
Dilan, after 9 months, now I understand your topic almost 100%, okay? Still not there completely, but great presentation. Okay, over to you.
Very interesting topic. I would like to ask, do you have in your data any information how the prognosis is changed with development of this microbiosis in these patients?
Thank you. Due to the high costs and the time that metagenomic sequencing results need nowadays, everyday clinical application is not there yet to talk about prognosing and clinical decision changing effect. But as looking back to the past, these things accelerate very fast if there is a market need for that, but we don't know yet.
Thank you for the presentation. I know that you are investigating risk factors now, but I would like to know if maybe you found some clinical trials with nutritional approaches trying to correct these dysbiosis during the hospitalization, if there is enough data for analysis of this kind.
Thank you. You asked the same last time? No, it was not you. Last progress report, there was a similar question, and I don't know what was the answer that time, but now I can tell you that that is the biggest problem regarding to microbiome research. That, okay, on one side we don't really understand exactly how the process goes, but that is the case with other things in life. But you have a tablet to take, and the outcome is nice. But with any efforts with probiotics, fecal transplantation, or diet changes, the results were not that astonishing as we anticipated before. And there are big trials. There is a huge Canadian trial going for years in ICU patients, trying all these methods. And actually, there were not huge differences between the intervention groups. Maybe I think prevention would be the best to avoid antibiotic.
There were additional losses and was there.
Okay.
My last question, I know the time. Look, what happens to a critically ill patient who lost the diversity when the patient is lucky enough to get better?
If he's lucky enough to get better, because the death rates are much higher in that group.
Maybe because of us, maybe because of nature, I don't know.
Because of nature mainly. Some part because of us. They are getting better in a
And what
lot of
happens to the
proportions.
diversity?
And their diversity is fluctuating for a while, but the restoration of the diversity before as a healthy person and the composition patterns that were seen before can take years. It's like after a bone marrow transplantation, the changes will maybe terminal for the rest of the life with a changed microbiome that is arising from the zero.